Grace and peace. Apostle Cheryl Richardson here. I am here. I'm going to be tagging you guys. So, letting me do this from my primary page, my personal page. So that's awesome. You all find me easier there. Welcome to another Facebook Live discussion regarding domestic violence. And our topic on today is the many faces of stalking, part 3. We've talked about it in the previous 2 weeks in this month in recognition of National Stalking Awareness Month. And we give you a little backstory regarding that and how that came to be in a little bit. But I'm going to ask you to share the 10 or 15 of your closest friends or frenemies or people that don't even like you. It doesn't matter. Everybody is impacted by this. It is so prevalent that either you or someone in your circle is experiencing domestic violence now, or has, or will in their lifetime. It is kind of out of control. And so we have a mandate from the Lord to cry aloud and to spare not regarding it. Rest assured, the enemy does not want this to take place. And so he, from time to time, pulls all the stops, and then we go into prayer and black his eye and keep it moving. So the Lord is good. We pray that you've enjoyed your weekend. I've been praying especially for those of you who are struggling with toxic, negative, detrimental relationships, and praying for the bride of Christ that we would come to understand our value, how very much he loves us, and to get to know him for ourselves and not based on what we've been told, even if your mama or your grandmama told you, that you learn how he moves and how much he loves you because of your own intimate relationship with him. And honestly, I think it's not until then that when you come into contact with something like domestic violence, it's not until then that you can differentiate between what God has called you to do and what he absolutely does not require that you do, because you know him in an intimate way. You know his character. You know what he desires for you. You know what he says in his word. And you know what behaviors reflect his character and what behaviors don't reflect his character, no matter who's exhibiting the behavior. And so we get hung up, especially people of faith, we get hung up. And because of that, we become hashtags. And it causes confusion in the body of Christ, because then people want to know, where was God? How could this happen? Where are all the prophets? Where are all the apostles? And the reality of it is that the Lord has already declared that his people are destroyed for lack of knowledge because they reject it. Not because they don't have it, but because when they have an opportunity to avail themselves of it, they make excuses. We make excuses, we dismiss it, we get upset, we start blocking folk when they tell us what we don't want to hear. And what's really been on my heart for quite some time now is just the sheer volume of victims who love the Lord. The sheer volume is mind-boggling, okay? And one of the things that we do, and I wasn't even going to talk about this today, but I'm feeling led in my spirit that I need to say this for someone. One of the things that we do that causes us to get ourselves ensnared is we feed into this social media tomfoolery in which everything is happy and light, and everything is highly anointed and blessed and highly favored, and everything is fire, and everything is all of that, right? And even in our relationships. So then when we begin to date, now we're posting stuff about who we're dating and how amazing they are and how wonderful they are and how God sent them to us and how all of that. And then when the shenanigans start, now what are you going to say? Now what are you going to say? You're either going to continue the lie, because now you know it's not true, right? So you're going to either begin to walk in a lie, okay? And practice that, or you're going to go quiet and disappear and you're working on your marriage and you're still honeymooning and all that. It's like, come on. Come on. And oftentimes we just move way too fast. We move way too fast. We move way too fast. And we ignore all of the obvious signs. Now, truth be told, most of the time, okay? Somebody's not going to like this, but that's okay. I'm going to love you regardless, okay? When you look back, it was clear that something was off, right? But we make excuses for it. And if we're really committed to a course of action, we'll find the scripture to justify it. And if we're really committed, we'll get mad with folk, cut them off, not speak with them. And then we'll start saying things like, well, everybody can't go with you where you going. And everybody can't understand. And everybody won't celebrate with you. Sometimes people aren't celebrating with you because they know they're looking at a devil. Sometimes people just know that that's not what it appears to be. Sometimes. Okay? And the reality of it is, we ought to be able to explore what is being said. To explore it. Because if you're right, and it's not a devil, it still won't be a devil when you get through exploring, right? But if you never look, you're rejecting knowledge. And now you've set yourself up to go down this path that God never intended. Okay, none of this is in my notes, but somebody needs to hear it. That is not what he wants for us. It is not what he wants for us. It's not. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. Even in terms of stalking, I have experienced it on extreme, crazy levels. Like crazy. Like to me, it didn't even make sense. I don't even acknowledge you. I don't talk to you. I don't say your name. I don't talk to nobody that's connected to you, and you will not go away. That is not normal. Okay? That's not normal. So what that told me was, it didn't have anything to do with me in the first place, because if you don't need any interaction from me to keep going, this is all in your head, and that's dangerous. That is dangerous. Okay, now, one of the dangers of a stalking situation, and we're going to look at the many definitions, but one of the dangers of a stalking situation, and please share this, is that a lot of times it's not shared. And so then the victim is isolated because of embarrassment. Maybe they're a professional. Maybe they're in law enforcement. Maybe they're an attorney. Maybe they're a doctor or a psychiatrist or a therapist or a psychologist, And so for people who have status and stature in society, it is incredibly difficult to admit that you're being mistreated, that you are being disregarded, that you're being disrespected, that you're being called out of your name, that you're being followed, tabs kept on you and all of that. Because, you're concerned about what people are going to wonder. Well, you are college educated. How did you get in this? Like, what did you find attractive about this? Okay? And so I just want to challenge you. If you're in a crazy relationship right now, or if you've ever been in one, okay? If you've ever been in one and you've gotten out safely, hallelujah. Okay? That's a tremendous blessing, because many people don't get out safely. Okay? And so I'm proud of you for that. But it's important that you examine, revisit, and understand, how did you get in it in the first place? What was appealing about it to you? Okay? The enemy found a place in you. He found a place in you. There was something in your heart condition that responded to the lie that he was telling. And it's important that you identify, what was the lie and why did I need to believe that? Because if you don't address it, you will fall for that same lie in a different suit, a different dress, different red bottoms, different apple bottoms. It's going to be a different physique, different cologne, same devil. Same devil, okay? And like I said, none of this is in my notes. But somebody needs to hear this. And so we have to be willing to accept responsibility for where we find ourselves in life. And we've got to grow past blaming God. Well, why did God send them? He did not send them. That other critter sent them. And it appealed to you. It appealed to me. Wherever we were in our life at the time, it appealed to something on the inside of us that was broken. God didn't send it. Just because we like it don't mean he sent it. Matter of fact, if you like it too much, he probably didn't send it. Because anything he sends is going to challenge you to grow and to develop and to deepen your relationship with him. Okay? And so I'm very, very concerned about the great number of people who love the Lord and who by all reports were faithful, you know, in their local ministries. They were sweethearts. They were caring and giving and loving and nurturing and all these things. But the flip side of that is, if the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, he wouldn't be looking for anything that was already jacked up, now would he? He'd be looking for something that's good and honest, okay, and nurturing and caring, so that he can destroy it. That's his whole purpose. That's his whole purpose. He knows what his end is going to be regardless of where the rest of us spend eternity. He already know where he going to be. That's not going to change. So this is about taking as many of us with him as he can. Okay, and I need for you all a purpose in your heart. You're going to stop setting yourself up to be a hashtag. Stop it. Stop. Okay, so hello to everyone who has joined. I appreciate you. I'm just really, really concerned. I'm concerned about the bride of Christ. I'm concerned about the sheer numbers of us that are being murdered, who are being stalked, who are not seeking help, who are isolated, who, when we go to ministry, we are given horrible, horrible advice. Don't get me started on that. Okay, y'all going to have to pray for me if I start talking about that, because it's one of the things that propels me forward in terms of raising awareness. As an apostle in the Lord's church, and as a prophet, and being able to acknowledge that there were things that happened in the past that I wished I had handled differently when it pertained to others, that I caved into the traditional foolishness, okay? Because it was drilled into us, it was trained into us, okay? And so there are some of us who need to unlearn some things. They meant well, but they were dead wrong, okay? They meant well. They meant well, but they were dead wrong. They were wrong, okay? Just that simple. Wrong. As two left shoes, as my mama used to say, okay? Wrong, okay? And if we truly love a person, we ought to be able to acknowledge that they were wrong and continue to love them, okay? Our love shouldn't depend on them being right all the time. They ought to be able to be human and make mistakes, okay? Do the wrong thing for the right reason, okay? And we acknowledge that what they did was wrong and that we still love them. So the two things are not mutually exclusive. It's not an act of tyranny to say that your pastor gave you some jacked up advice. If that's what happened, hey Ree, hey Ro, then that's what happened. Just that simple, okay? And the sooner we are able to tell ourselves the truth and stop lying to ourselves, the better off we will be. There are too many of us dying. There are too many. I talk to God about it all the time because I cannot wrap my head around it. The enemy should not be able to roll up into the church of God and just snatch us up out of there. He should not be able to do this. Why is this happening? Because we're not rightfully dividing the word of truth, and we are not applying what the word says to our own situation. We can apply it to everybody else's situation, okay? You can see that Susie's husband is a Fruit Loop, but you can't see that yours is a Fruit Loop also, okay? There's something wrong with that. We got to be able to look at what's going on around us and accurately assess what we are looking at. Because if we do not, you cannot, all this talk about warfare, you cannot war an effective warfare bringing a water pistol and they got AK-47s. That's not going to work out well, okay? You cannot bring spitballs to a fight and they got grenade launchers, okay? You're going to get killed. You're going to die. You can love Jesus and be dead all at the same time. You're going to see him sooner than he intended to see you because you're not warring an effective strategic warfare. So how do we do that? And none of this is in my notes. But how do you do this? Educate yourself. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. It's the lack of knowledge. And because we refuse to access it when it's available to us. Okay? If somebody doesn't bring it to us on a platter, okay, with a pretty doily and some sugar sprinkled on top, we don't want it. We don't want it. If we are required to change how we view a thing, how we view society, how we view those around us, if we are challenged in those areas, if we are required to look at our ministry leaders, okay? To look at our ministry leaders and make an accurate assessment about what's going on with them. Okay, what is going on with them? What's going on with them? They ain't got no business having no side chick and all that. Okay, that is not okay. And if they doing that, what kind of word are they giving you? How polluted is it? And why are you following them? Okay, so we are responsible for who we choose to follow. We are responsible for who we choose to follow at the end of the day. Okay, we don't want it because it can be. Yes, it's hard. Yes, indeed, it sure is. It's hard. It's horrible. It's horrible. Let me tell y'all something. I had a pastor many years ago. My husband loved this man. This man was an entrepreneur. He was a businessman, African-American, gregarious, outgoing. Everybody loved him, friendly, comical, even in his sermons. And in my spirit, something was wrong. And I was told I was being critical. But I could not. I was just like, I love him, but I just feel like... I don't know what it is. And so, fast forward, he was married. His wife is really, really sweet. I can hardly tell you today what her voice sounds like because she very rarely even opened her mouth. If you said God bless you to her, she would respond, God bless you to you. And that'd be the end of that whole conversation. Wouldn't be no conversation. No small talk, no chit chat. She was very reserved, very quiet, very introverted. Okay. Now, looking back on it, and now, having been a therapist for 30 years, now I understand what I was looking at. Before, I just thought she was shy. I just thought she was shy, right? Everybody's not outgoing. But no. And there's no telling what kind of hell she was catching at home. But this is what happened. She was murdered at home while we were in Bible study one night. Now, at this time, I didn't even know I was a prophet. My family told me I was strange from the time I was a little girl because I would just know stuff and they would be trying to figure out how did I know, and I didn't know how I knew. I just knew, right? And I was raised in the Baptist church, so they didn't talk about prophets and all of that. They just thought, she done had another dream. Half of them would tell me, if you dream about me, tell me. The other half would say, don't tell me nothing if you have a dream. Just don't even tell me. Let me find out as it happens. Don't tell me nothing ahead of time. So I didn't understand that I was a prophet. And I didn't understand that my misgivings and my discomfort, I was confused because I was being told that I was being critical. And he was outgoing and friendly and all this kind of stuff. And so nothing was fitting. You know what I mean? It's like, and so when a person is in an abusive situation, this is what happens. What they're perceiving and what they're being told by the abuser and what they're experiencing and what they're being told by people in a position of authority often contradict one another. And you don't know what to believe. And so what we tend to do is we hit the path of least resistance. And we will decide that we're wrong, because that's the Christian thing to do, right? To repent and to recognize your own weaknesses and all of that. So we'll take that path. Okay, I'm wrong. I'm being judgmental. I'm being critical. Hey, Cassie. And totally override the Spirit of God. Totally override the Spirit of God. Now, if you think back to your own life, and if you want to share it up here, feel free. But if you think back to your own life, it took a whole lot of energy to override it, didn't it? It wasn't no easy thing to dismiss. You dismiss it and then it popped back up. You dismiss it and it popped back up, right? You dismiss it, it popped back up, okay? I was repeatedly told, hey, Joseph, I was repeatedly told I was being critical. And I'm thinking, but how does it benefit me to think this about my own pastor? Hey, Jason, how does it benefit me to think this? So she was murdered while we were in Bible study. We're in Bible study. I will never forget this. And it was around Christmas time. And at first they thought it was a robbery. And the pastor was in church with us. And everything in my spirit was telling me he had something to do with this. He had something. I knew it. There was no question in my mind. Okay. And when I shared that thought with someone that I should have been able to trust, I was told that I was being judgmental and how absurd that was and how ridiculous that was. And I'm thinking, I don't want to think this. This is not what I want to think. I do not want to think that my pastor has something to do with his wife being killed. And so they thought at first it was a robbery, but then there were little things like nothing was taken. It's Christmas time, gifts under the tree. What robber breaks into your house and don't take none of your Christmas gifts? Like, she had jewelry on. It didn't make any sense. Then the glass was broken in the kitchen door, but the glass was on the wrong side of the door. The glass should have been on the inside, but it was on the outside. So it was clear that someone from inside had broken it to make it look like that's how entry was gained. It was crazy. It was crazy. I was young and I didn't have no support. And I'm thinking, I know he did this. I know it. I know it. And that was one of the few times in my life where I experienced fear, because what do? You suspect your ministry leader has done something horrible or had someone else to do it. You're a prophet or you're an evangelist or whatever. God has dropped this thing in your spirit, and it doesn't benefit you to think it. Like, why would I need to think that? Because now at this point, honestly, I don't know whether to go to church or stay home. It's like, I don't know whether to go to church or stay home. Apparently you're not safe anywhere. That's the conclusion I came to when I was 20-something years old. Okay. And that thing went on for a whole year. It was miserable. It was miserable. I couldn't tell nobody what I was thinking. It was miserable. And I remember one day he asked me in service, well, sis, what do you think? And I'm thinking, now that devil in you, I know. It's very interesting. Warfare is interesting because the spirit that an individual is operating in is familiar with you and the God that you say you serve. Okay? So the warfare takes place on a completely different plane altogether. He will call my name out in his sermons. So much so that a friend of mine visited the church and said, he sure is calling your name. He's sure saying, right, sis, right, sis. And I'm thinking, okay, so it's not me being paranoid. He is doing that a lot. And that was his way of trying to keep me in check, right? But I didn't have any support for what I was thinking anyway. And then a year goes by and they arrested him. They arrested him. And I remember I worked her funeral because I was one of the ushers on the usher board. And my post was right next to the family. I said, God, please. I know this man did this. I know he did. And I got to stand right next to him through her funeral. It was awful. It was awful. It was awful. They found him guilty and they sentenced him to 25 years to life. Okay, so now my pastor's on the front page of the newspaper in handcuffs, having been convicted of murdering his wife. Okay, so she seemed like a sweet woman. I've never heard her say a cross word. I hardly ever heard her say any words. But the question that troubles me about these situations is, how did this happen right in God's house? Here's the answer. Because we, the sheep, okay, because I was a sheep before I became a ministry leader, we just blindly follow. We don't question anything. We don't vet anything. We don't rightly divide the word. Many of us don't even know what the word says. We just taking people's word for what it says and people's interpretation, and we are running with that. And God is not required. He is not obligated to honor what we think he said. He's not obligated to respond to what we said he said. He's obligated to honor what he actually said. Okay? Does that make sense? So if I don't rightly divide it, he's not obligated to honor it, because that's not what he said. And so we have a responsibility to learn for ourselves, what did he say? And stop taking people's word for it. Listen, I don't care how long they've been on social media. I don't care how many followers they have. On our other Facebook page, Lion of Judah Global Impact Ministries, we have over 19,000 followers, and we've had them for 4 years now. Okay? Steady. We've not been below 19,000. Okay? It doesn't make any difference. If I say something crazy, somebody need to say something. Okay? I'm just saying. You can't look at that. You can't look at that. You can't look at their popularity. You can't look at the fact that they're handsome and they're single, and maybe if you follow them, they'll notice you. Because they ain't studying you. They ain't studying you, okay? You can't do it because you find her attractive and she's single, and if you stay on her page, maybe she'll notice you. Because she probably ain't studying you either, okay? So that is not a good reason. We have got to Hold people accountable for what they try to feed us, number one. Okay, make them prove it. They ought to be able to prove it. They ought to be able to prove it, and they shouldn't get offended when you ask for proof. They should not get offended when you ask for proof. They should not. You know what? When people ask me questions, it's a compliment to me. It's a compliment to me because it means you're listening, and it means that you're thinking. You are thinking, and that is awesome. You are thinking, and that is awesome. And so we've got to stop blindly following people and blindly following tradition and blindly just la, 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 la. And then people are getting picked out of the church right off of the pew next to us. Right off of the pew next to us. And it devastates the entire congregation every single time this happens, because now you have to acknowledge that this pastor or evangelist or bishop or apostle or whoever that you thought was so amazing was an abusive critter behind closed doors after the benediction. And as deep and mystical as everybody is, nobody picked that up. That's a problem. That's a problem. Because God knew the entire time what was going on. So we have got to further develop our relationships with the Lord, okay? Now, January is National Stalking Awareness Month. The reason that it was designated as National Stalking Awareness Month is because back in 2003, Margaret Clinky, she was known as Peggy, was stalked mercilessly by her ex, who crossed state lines and murdered her. Now, I'm going to post later, I'm going to post her 911 call, okay? And I'm not one for like drama and dramatics and flair and trying to get everybody, but we need to understand this stuff is real, okay? I'm going to find it, and I'm going to post her 911 call. She said, he's breaking my door in. He's breaking my door in. And the dispatcher says, okay, we're on our way. And she said, hurry, because if you don't hurry, he's going to kill me. And that is exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did. And then he killed himself because, you know, hey, he didn't want to have to be held responsible, right, for what he had just done. It's too much. It's too much. And this is happening in churches. And because we don't have a handle on this, and because there's no accountability within the church of God, right? The world is running amok. And people want to know why. Because the church is a hot mess right now. There's no consistent accountability. Some people do something that's sin. Other people do it and we understand. It depends on if we like them or not. It depends. It should depend on the word of God. And it's either right or it's not right. Okay? And so the way things are right now, the enemy creeps into the church and he just snatches us up out of the church. While church is going on. Right after church. You know what I'm saying? And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And God is not okay with it. And so we have a mandate to address it. Now, clearly, we're not trying to win friends and influence people, right? Don't nobody want to talk about this. Don't nobody want to talk about it. And to be honest with you, it's a heavy thing to carry in my spirit. But it's got to be talked about. It's got to be talked about, okay? And if we can save a life just because a victim hears and can recognize that the situation that they're in is detrimental to their purpose and their destiny, and that it is contrary to what God has planned for their life. God has not destined that anyone marry an abuser. He has not. And if you did that, he didn't tell you to do that. He didn't tell you to do that. He did not tell you to do it. Okay? He didn't tell you. And if you think back, had you listened to your gut, you wouldn't have done it. Had you listened to your best friend, you wouldn't have done it. Had you listened to your mama, you wouldn't have done it. But you fell out with everybody that told you not to do it. Okay? And so then the problem becomes pride. And pride comes before a fall, right? Right? That's scripture. Pride comes before a fall. So now I'm in this situation and I've blasted it all over social media. We need to cut that out too. Blasted it all over social media. And when they heads start spinning around and they start spitting out green stuff, what we going to tell the people now? That's the devil? Probably not. We're going to go radio silent is probably what's going to happen. Disappear. We're going to disappear. We're not going to say nothing. And we'll be isolated with that critter is what will happen. And we will try to convince ourselves that God is going to make a way. Well, he's not obligated to make a way because he didn't tell you to do it in the first place, right? Again, he's not obligated to fix what he didn't put together. All right? And staying in a situation because you've been in it for a long time is the worst possible reason you can have to stay in it. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't matter how long you do it. If God didn't ordain it, it's not going to work. You're going to be miserable. And if you're in an abusive situation, somebody is very likely going to end up dead. Okay? All right. Now I know this is very direct. Those of you who know me know I have to say what God is telling me to say, because honestly, it can't be. And people reach out to me all the time, but it cannot be. And I don't try to get people to do something that they don't feel ready to do, but I do want them to know what all the options are and what they can expect if they continue to do what they're doing right now. Okay? And I'm not mad at you if you don't leave. I'm not mad at you if you go back to him or her. I'm not mad at you. But I already know what's getting ready to happen. I already know. And I don't even want to see it. Like, sometimes I'm like, God, do I have to witness this? Do I have to witness this? I don't want to do this. And he'll ask me, are you done? So that means I need to hush and just do what I'm told. Okay, so that's what I endeavor to do. I know that God has an amazing plan for your life. I know that he has an amazing plan for my life. He promised it, and he cannot lie, right? So if what you're looking at isn't amazing, it's not his plan. Okay, I don't know what else to say. If what you're looking at, hey, Misty, is not amazing, it's not his plan. You're not in his will. You're not in his will. You're not in his will if you're getting cussed out all the time. You are not in his will if you're getting slapped upside the head. You are not in his will if you're afraid to go home. If you're being followed, something is wrong, okay? You have opened a door to something that God did not say was okay. You need to be able to acknowledge that so that you can try to get out of it safely, okay? Now, so Peggy was murdered by her ex, and this evening, I'm going to post the actual 911 call, because this stuff is real, all right? And often the enemy will tell you exactly what he's going to do. And for those of you who have left your abuser and you move the next state over and you think all is well, no, it's not. No, it's not. Don't you believe that lie. Don't you believe that lie. You hear me? Don't you believe it. You need a safety plan. And you need a safety plan for if they decide they're going to break in at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 states over. That's what you need. And sometimes they ain't not worried about getting caught until after the fact, because they going to kill you and themselves too. Okay? They have no intention of being taken in. That's not the plan. All right? So don't congratulate yourself. This is fine. It's congratulate yourself. Give yourself credit for finding the courage to exit. But do it wisely. Use wisdom. Have a safety plan. Trust that others need to know what the plan is. You need a code word. There are things that you need to do, especially if you're not ready to leave. If you're planning on staying with that critter or critterette, you need a plan. You need a plan for getting out of there if the wheels come off that bus in the middle of the night. You need a plan, okay, if they show up on your job. You need a plan. You may need to change your job, okay? Oftentimes, victims are found at work because they don't change their job. And it's not easy to change your job, okay? But if you don't tell anybody, right, then nobody can help you. And you put other people at risk, all right? It's just, and it happens all the time. I posted last week that this young lady, a beautiful young girl, reported to the police that her ex had called her 50 times. 50 times. Clearly, he was unhinged. Okay? Okay, the next time they saw her, she had been shot and killed at some intersection where he had followed her and killed her. Okay? So this is serious. This is serious, all right? All right. So what is stalking? Stalking is generally defined as a pattern of behavior that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear. It is a course of conduct crime, which means that more than one thing has to happen more than one time. So it's a progressive kind of thing. It's as you gather all of these behaviors together that you can identify it as stalking. Okay? Now, check this out. In terms of patterns of behavior, currently 51% of states require that there be 2 or more different instances where the perpetrator followed, watched, or otherwise harassed the victim, and 47% require an established pattern of harassment, which means you've got to be able to prove it. You've got to be able to prove to someone who wasn't there that it happened. That might mean taking a picture. That might mean doing a screenshot. That might mean a witness statement. Okay? And so why am I talking about this? Because even if you don't feel afraid initially, you need to document these things. Journal about it. Do a secret note on your phone or something. Because often what happens is, as you document, you become aware of how frequent it is and how abnormal the behavior is. Just the frequency alone, right? You realize that. Something that I experienced in my relationship is, I love kids, right? I always have. I remember going through this period of time where I felt like I was suffocating, like I couldn't breathe. And I'm thinking, what is wrong? And then I realized that I was never left alone. I was never left alone. Never left alone. So imagine that. Every time you get in your car to run to the store to pick up a loaf of bread, you got people in the car with you. Every time you get ready to go anywhere, somebody's in the car with you. What time are you coming back? And the thing is, it went on for a while before I realized what it was. I was literally never left alone. And then I started paying attention. And I realized that kids were instructed to jump in the car with me. Whenever I got in the car, somebody had to go with me. So it was very subtle at first. And then it started getting on my nerves. So one of the things that you can watch is your own mood, your own thought process. You know, are you feeling more irritable? Are you feeling, like you're suffocating? What is that about? And so we ignore these things. Because at first I just thought, well, maybe I'm just tired, I'm working long hours. And I'm thinking, I am literally never by myself. I got 5 other people. I'm just going to get a loaf of bread. What in the world? Okay? It took me a long time to figure out that was a setup. That was so it could be reported back. Who I talked to, who approached me, all that good stuff. Okay? So it's very, very subtle. And if we don't pay attention to it, and if we don't pay attention to the signals that God does give us, okay, our own uneasiness, our own irritability, our own frustration, what is that about? Most of us are, reasonably reasonable people, right? So what is that about? So we need to slow down long enough to understand what it is we're responding to. Okay? So, again, 51% of states require that there be 2 or more different instances where the perpetrator followed, watched, or otherwise harassed the victim, and 47% require an established pattern of harassment. Okay, so when you talk about harassment, you mean it doesn't necessarily rise to the level of stalking, okay, but that they're constantly bothering you, okay? Level of fear. Almost half of the U.S. states require proof that the victim felt terrified by the stalking behavior. Well, now, how do you prove that? Do you whip out your cell phone and start screaming hysterically and make a recording? Like, how do you prove to a person who's removed from your situation, who does not know you at all, who is sitting on a bench in a courtroom as a judge, how do you convince them that you were terrified at the time? How do you convince them? One of the things that you can do that can jeopardize your ability to do that is continually interacting with the stalker. Continuing to receive calls from them, talking to them, interacting with them. Now making it clear, not drawing a line in the sand, okay? And so, I'm sharing this so that you can understand it's like pushing a boulder uphill when you're talking about stalking, all right? It is against the law in all 50 states. It's against the law according to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's against the law according to tribal law as it pertains to Native Americans, okay? But all the laws are different, and they all require different things. And only 20% of them consider it a felony the very first time. So no matter what happens, in that first instance, it's not considered a felony because it's the first instance. Now, chances are it's not the first instance. Chances are it's the first time that you reported it. So this is why documenting it is important. Even if you don't feel ready to go to law enforcement, you need to keep a record of the things that are taking place. And someone else needs to have access to that information as well, okay? All right. So 24% require proof that the victim feared for their safety. 8% require proof that the victim feared for their life. And again, that is so subjective. It depends on what judge. It depends on if they have indigestion or not. You know, it's like you've got to convince another person about how terrifying your situation is. Okay? The best way to undermine that is for you to seek interaction. Now, why am I saying that? Because often in situations like this, when it rises to a place of stalking, a lot of trauma bonding has already happened. And many victims are not consistent in their resistance to the abuser. Sometimes they'll reject the calls. Sometimes they'll take the calls. Sometimes they'll reject, they don't want to go out on a date. And the other time they're terrified, but they're going out on a date. So someone outside of your relationship, it looks like you want to be interacting with them. Is how it looks to them. Because they're thinking, well, if you don't want to be involved, why are you going out to dinner? If you don't want to be involved, why are you accepting gifts? If you don't want to be involved, why are you accepting their calls? Why are you responding to text messages? You're saying that you're afraid, but you're responding consistently to text messages. Now, what I've told you before is it's important that you draw a line in the sand. There needs to be a clear demarcation, a point in time in which you said, I don't want nothing to do with this. I do not, okay? And that needs to be the last communication. Because if you keep dipping in and out, now it looks like you're encouraging it, okay? And again, now you can't convince anybody that you're terrified. Because many people don't understand the dynamics of domestic violence, and they don't understand trauma bonding, and they don't understand that their brain is rewired, and they have no idea how all of this affects a victim's behavior, okay? Now, the standard of fear. 53% of states require that the behavior be enough to make a reasonable person feel fear. What y'all think that look like? I have no idea. But 53% of our states thinks that's a good measuring tool. So this is what a victim is up against. 20% require that the prosecutor prove that the victim actually felt fear. So now here's the thing. If 20% of our states require that the prosecutor prove it, the prosecutor cannot prove that the victim actually felt fear if the victim is initiating phone calls to the abuser, initiating emails to the abuser, checking with the abuser's family members about how the abuser is doing, being concerned because they have a court date, inserting yourself in whatever shenanigans they're engaged in, okay? You're undermining your own case, and you are tying the hands of a prosecutor who may very well want to prosecute, but you make it impossible because you won't leave the person alone. Why? Because of trauma bonding. Okay, so what can be done? You need to get connected to a domestic violence advocate. You need to get in counseling with someone who is skilled in terms of domestic violence. Not any old therapist is going to be able to talk you through this. They're not. They're not. Because they're going to be wondering why you don't just stop talking to the person. Okay? So someone who is skilled concerning domestic violence and the impact that violence has on behavior. The impact that violence and trauma has on the brain, and how the brain is damaged and rewired, and how it takes time to get back to some sense of normalcy, okay? And so you need somebody to know what they're doing. I'm just saying, okay? Now I'm going to say this. Don't y'all get mad at me. That may not be your pastor. May not be your first lady. May not be your pastor. May not be your first lady. May not be your right reverend. May not be the chairman of the deacon board. You need somebody that's skilled in this, okay? You wouldn't go to your pastor and ask him to do brain surgery, would you? Okay, it's that serious. Okay, now 27% require that the prosecutor prove both that a reasonable person would feel fear and that the victim actually did feel fear. So some prosecutors, if they look at your case and you're constantly calling to see what they doing, you checking, you calling their exes, you calling their current person that they with or whatever, you tracking them, you stalking them on social media, you riding past their house, you cultivating a relationship with their mama because you know she gonna leak some information to you because she a flying monkey, right? They know they can't win that case because they can't prove it because you are too erratic. So they may not even press for a case. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes the reason that we don't get help is because we're in our own way. We're in our own way. We are our own worst enemy. And oftentimes that is why these things don't go forward. The other thing that happens is that hoovering happens, which, named after the vacuum cleaner. I don't know why that vacuum cleaner is getting such a bad rap. It's supposed to be an amazing vacuum cleaner. Y'all remember the Hoover? Okay, so hoovering is that behavior that the abuser engages in when they try to suck the victim back in, usually because they want to avoid prosecution. They want to avoid jail time. They want to avoid a fine. They want to avoid consequences, okay? And they want their supply back. They want their supply back, okay, at the end of the day. And so a lot of times prosecutors are reluctant because they know that they cannot rely on the victim to be consistent many times. They'll go forward with a case and the victim don't even show up to court. Because they've been talking to the abuser, who is sorry, who loves them, who wants to rebuild, and whatever else you wanted to hear that you could never get them to say before all this happened, okay? So, more than 60% of stalking victims reported that they feared harm to themselves, their partner, or a family member, all right? 46% were afraid of not knowing what would happen next. So 46% of stalking victims understand that their stalker is erratic, and many of them know exactly what they're capable of, but they don't know what the progression will be. They don't know if they're going to strike all at one time. They don't know if they're going to do it over time. They don't know, okay? And that is psychological, emotional torture is what that is. That is horrible to have to try to live with that. Now, can God help you? He absolutely can. Now, I will be transparent. Y'all listening? My stalking situation spanned 20 years. 20. And that's with me not responding to emails, not responding to text messages, not responding to flying monkeys, not responding to kids, not responding to nobody that they sent, cutting off everybody that smelled like them, okay? If you were scared of them, I cut you off. If you thought they were amazing, I cut you off. They call me the Ice Princess. I'm like, the devil is a lie. I'm going to walk in my purpose. And I'm convinced that don't include whatever this is, okay? So, 20 years. 20 years. And every once in a while, they'll try again. Every once in a while, they try again. And so, I have adjusted how I live. Don't you look at my Facebook profile and think I live in West Palm Beach, because that's not where I am, okay? That's not where I am. I have lived there, but I'm not there now. As much as I travel, if I post something, know this. When I post it, I'm no longer there. I'm not there. I was there. I'm not there anymore. Okay? So there are certain adjustments that I've made over the course of my life. And what I understood coming out of that situation, and God brought me out, but I'm going to tell you something. Bishop Anthony Hatcher, who was not even on this live right now, said something to me one day that finally got through to me. And he said this. He said, Pastor Cheryl, you have one decision to make. You're going to either choose that situation or you're going to choose your destiny. Which is it? That's all he said. He didn't fuss at me. He didn't. That's what he said. And when he said that, that pierced my heart. You hear me? And I made a decision that day that when I thought about all that my mama had been through and all that my family had endured and that my grandmother on my father's side was a slave. I decided then, I'm not going to be enslaved. I don't care what their complexion is. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And I am going to walk in my purpose. And whatever I have to cut off, whoever I have to cut off, done. Family, no family. No exceptions. Those of you who know me well, know that's how I roll. No exceptions. There are certain things that nobody gets to do and stay in my space. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you think you are. And I love you, but you're not going to do that. Stalked, kidnapped. Let me tell you something. God kept me. The other thing that can happen when you find yourself in this situation is it can tap into, and I'm speaking to people of faith now, whether you're a man or a woman, it will tap into that part of you that God has delivered you from. It will. It'll try to wake that up. It'll try to wake that up. It will try to wake that up. Okay? And I remember one night, my apostle, I called her, Apostle Elizabeth Jackson. I don't think she's on here either. They didn't know I was going to mention them. Apostle Elizabeth Jackson. I called her one night because I'd gotten a call from the stalker that said, I want my relationship back, and you're not going to tell me that I can't have you back. And I'm thinking, I just felt like, I think I'm tired of this. I'm tired. I'm tired of the phone calls. I'm tired of you popping up. I'm tired of the veiled threats. I'm over it. And that girl that grew up in Philadelphia woke up. She did. I'm just being honest. So see, we try to be deep and mystical, but you can stay under the pressure of that thing so long that everything that God has delivered you from will rise back up. Okay? It will rise back up with a vengeance because it's in protective mode. All right? And I think I'm tired of the threats. I think you think I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And I think I'm not doing it. That's what I think. And so I called Apostle Jackson and I said to her, they keep threatening me and I'm sick of it. I'm going to lock my children in their rooms. I'm going to get my firearm and I'm going to sit right in front of this door. And if that doorknob turns and my hand's not on it, we're going to have a problem. So they went into prayer. They went into prayer. Okay, let me tell you something. When you desire to do what's right and when your desire is to hear God, He will send help. He will send help. And the reality of it is He'd been sending me warning and I was just conflicted about it, right? But if you're not careful, it'll take you to a place where the enemy wins because you end up doing something that's illegal, right? Because you didn't get out soon enough, okay? So I'm sure you're probably wondering what happened. Hey, Verona, I'm sure you're probably wondering what happened, okay? They got stopped by law enforcement on their way to me for something completely unrelated, and they were arrested for something that they didn't even do. And I know they didn't do it because they was with me when it was done, okay? So God intervened, but I believe that God honored the fact that I wanted to do what was right and that I was willing to walk away from it, okay? And so we can't be enamored with the thing that is killing us because then we're ignoring the one who loves us and who died for us. Christ has already died for us. He's already died. And we expect Him to be okay with us letting somebody else kill us? He's not okay with that. And it means that we've chosen them over Him. And it puts us in a position where the enemy now has access to our life because we let him in. We've got to be able to acknowledge that, beloved. We've got to be able to acknowledge that. All right? And Verona's on here. Now, Verona, we were working together at this time. And we worked at a facility for juvenile delinquent boys. It was an all-boys program. It was like a wilderness program, right? The stalker showed up at work. It's a wilderness program. Why you show up with a suit and tie? So you show up unannounced, dressed up like you going to church, a bouquet of roses, and some jewelry or something. I didn't want nothing from them, okay? The boys said to me, the boys, juvenile delinquent boy, gangbangers. We had boys who had robbed the Brinks truck, okay? So these were the kind of kids we were working with. They informed me, we don't like him. We don't like him, and if he does something to you, we gonna get him. These are teenage boys who could see, what that was, okay? And so that made me think too. So we've got to not isolate, and we've got to be willing to hear the opinions of others without getting defensive, without cutting them off. If the person that you're with is okay with you, you ought to be able to hear other person's concern, okay? File it away for future reference. Maybe something will happen down the road that makes it clear that you should pay attention. Maybe not. But you should be able to hear it. It's when we're not willing to hear it, okay, that we tie God's hands. His hands are tied by his own word, okay? And he said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge because they reject it. Because they reject it. He's obligated to get you the information that you need. He is obligated to get me the information that I need. When Bishop Hatcher said to me, you have one decision to make, and this was years ago, and that is that relationship or your destiny. That's all he said to me. That's all he had to say. That thing pierced my heart. And as hard as it was, and as much as I had invested, okay, I invested a whole lot, okay, I'm like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this and be who God intended for me to be at the same time. And so when we choose to stay in a situation that is contrary to our purpose and our destiny, we are choosing that devil over God. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. I know this is hard, but people are dying. And I can't. I mean, y'all don't understand. It can't be that I didn't say it. It can't be that you popped up here and I didn't say it. Hey, Susan, it can't be that I know that you're in a situation that's not what God ordained, okay? And I'm going to act like it's okay. I cannot stand before him and try to explain that. I can't be responsible for that, okay? So I have got to say what he's saying, okay? And trust me, I can't tell, but it's okay. It's all right. It's okay. God's got me, all right? Because I'm not going to stop. I'm not stopping. I am not going to stop, okay? I'm not going to stop. Now, so if you're in a crazy relationship, and especially if you're one of those people that got on Facebook and throwed all these pictures around, and listen, I want to be happy for you. I'm one of those people that when God do something for you, I'm excited. And I'm not excited because, well, he did it for you so he can do it for me. I'm excited because he did it for you. I'm excited because you really wanted that. You really desired that. And he agreed with it and he did it for you. I'm excited for you. If he never does it for me, I'm still excited for you. Okay? So he don't need to do it for me to be excited for you. Okay? That's not who I am. All right? But it cannot be that you just pretending and you want everybody to think everything's amazing. And that critter is cussing you out and looking at you sideways and checking your phone and following you everywhere. You need to tell somebody. You need to tell somebody. And don't get isolated. Whoever this is for. You all, please share this. Please share this, okay? What I don't want is for somebody that I know and someone that I love to become a doggone hashtag. When I am on here every week, when I'm accessible, y'all know I'll answer my phone in the middle of the night. You can hit me up on Messenger. You will get a response. I don't ignore folks. I don't do that. I don't do that, okay? And so I want you to have what Christ died for. Life, and an abundant life. More abundant. To experience his unbridled love for you. His unbridled love for you. But we've got to be willing to walk away from the thing that is killing us. We've got to be willing to go against the grain. We've got to be willing to be misunderstood, because you are worth it. You are worth it, okay? There's no reason for folk to be dying as young as they are dying because of some critter who's got control issues. They are on assignment. They're on assignment. Okay? They're on assignment. They are. And it's sad. But the enemy's not going to send something that you don't like. He's going to send what you like. It's going to smell the way you like it to smell. It's going to be the right height. Drive the right vehicle. Have the potential. If they don't have nothing accomplished, they got potential. It's going to appeal to you. It's going to appeal to your flesh. Or it would appeal to your need to be a good Christian, or to be a good spiritual person and accept them with all their flaws and all, because God accepted us. So go ahead. This is what we do. This is what we do. When I look back, and I'm closing with this, but this, I'm really being transparent today, y'all. Okay. The abuser's mama said, she said to me, what do you love about him? Did y'all hear what I said? His mama asked me, what do you love about him? Like, she was confused about that whole thing. Okay, I promise you, that is the God's honest truth. That's what she said. That's what she said. And I remember washing dishes one night, and he said to me, I'm going to break you. It's something about, if we pay attention, the enemy will tell you what his plan is, right? And God will cause the enemy to say it so that you can be aware and govern yourself accordingly. But a lot of times we dismiss it, we make excuses, we misappropriate scripture, okay? So I'll never forget it. I can see it right now, okay? I'm washing dishes. We had a little pass-through thing where you could see into the living room. So I'm at the kitchen sink and I'm doing dishes. And he said, I'm going to break you. What? Those are the words that came out of his mouth. The devil? Nope. That would not be my testimony. And I said, you're a devil. And you know what he said? Y'all listening? I may never say this again. He said these words. Look at what lengths I had to go to get you. That's what he said. Now, this person was recommended, vouched for by their pastor. Okay? Was at church every time the door opened. Dressed nice. Okay? Big as devil. I think I seen yet. Had the nerve to say, look at what great lengths I had to go through to get you. I never forgot that. Never forgot it. Why am I sharing all of that? Because I'm delivered. Okay? I'm good. I'm delivered. I want you to understand. I want you to understand how deep this thing is, though. I want you to understand how deep this is. Okay? If you are being stalked, if you are being followed, if you are being monitored, if there's GPS on your car, check your phone, check your iPad, check your computer, okay? If you have a camera on your computer, put a sticker over that thing when you're not using it, because they can monitor you that way. And with all these electronics, there are cameras that don't even look like cameras. There are cameras that don't look like nothing. The size of a pinhead. Pay attention to your surroundings. Pay attention to the kind of questions that you're being subjected to. Are you being asked to prove that you didn't do something? People couldn't speak at me at church. They couldn't speak to me. I had friends. Those of you who know me know I'm a hugger, right? I hug people. So imagine you go to church one day and all of a sudden this is what you get. Why is everybody shoving their hand at me? Like what? So then I found out that the men in the church had been informed that they better not hug me. And these are people that I've known for years. And I'm thinking, why is everybody acting so weird? So this I'm telling you, it's like a network that they set up. And they go behind the scenes and they manipulate and they position. And it's all about control. It's all about control. It's not cute. It's not romantic. It's not God. All right? Stalking is very, 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 very serious. And most of the time, when you have a domestic violence homicide, the women have reported being stalked in the year prior to their murder. Okay? And so this is why we spend so much time on it. I am Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson. I am Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson. I'm going to go back and look at your comments. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming on. And Susan, I meant to wave to you before. Hey, B. If you had any questions or comments, I will go back and I will address it. And hey, Mayor. Oh, I love y'all. Cassie, Jason, yay, Joseph. Okay, so please share. And we'll be back on next week. Now, one of the things that I want to do is I want to start opening up the lives. So if you or someone you know have a history of domestic violence and you're at the place in your journey where you feel ready to share, because a large part of healing is being able to talk about what you've experienced, okay? It's kind of hard to get over something that you will never, ever talk about, truly. And so if you're at a place where you feel ready to talk, to share about it or whatever, and we can talk ahead of time so you can let me know what you don't want to talk about or whatever. But I think it would be helpful for people to hear your story and where you are and how you've progressed. And any advice that you might have for someone who is still struggling with it, okay? So in February, because we're going to wrap up this month, still talking about the different aspects of stalking because it is so critically important. It is an indicator that somebody's going to die is what it is, okay? One college professor said that stalking is homicide in slow motion. That's what he called it. So in February, I think I want to open it up to victims, no matter what stage they're in, if they feel ready to talk about it, so they can come on the live with me and we can talk about what it's like, what they feel, what they are doing, what they wish they had done differently or whatever. Now, for those of you who are looking for a safe place to share your story and you don't want to be on a Facebook Live, we have a private Facebook group called Dominion Over Domestic Violence. There are other resources out there. Lisa Alexander with Stand Up Survivor. I love her to pieces. She's amazing. Donna Wright is out there with Why Not Domestic Violence and Child Abuse. There are lots of organizations out there. Okay, so there's help out there. The hotline.org. You can, matter of fact, I think the picture behind my profile picture had been, if you look on my page, there's a list of resources there as well. So, or you can reach out to me on Messenger and let me know how I can help you. Okay. I love you so much. And what I want for you is for you to have everything that God intended for you to have. Know this, the blessing of the Lord maketh rich, and it adds no sorrow with it. So if you are sorrowful, if you are afraid, if you're being terrorized, I don't care what title that critter has, God did not send them. I don't care who vouched for them, okay? I'm telling you from experience. I don't care who vouched for them. If they are tormenting you, God did not send them. Okay? The blessing of the Lord maketh rich and adds no sorrow with it. This is Apostle Cheryl L. Richardson. I'll be back on next week. I love you. Reach out if you need me. Know that I'm praying for you. Share, share, share. Blessings to you.